the United Arab Emirates. When these words are spoken, they invoke certain images, maybe of ostentatious wealth, maybe of rampant consumerism, or maybe just of modern miracles. Think of the world islands, think of skiing in the desert. But is there a dark side? To understand this further, you need to look back a little bit at the recent history of this country. You need to look back to the 70s when oil was discovered. With the discovery of oil, the rulers of this area received sudden and a lot of wealth. But they also had the mindset to create an auspicious vision to help turn this desert country into something like it is today. But there was one thing that they were missing, and that was human capital to be able to implement this vision. So, because as you may know, the time before that, this country was sparsely populated, and there was just a few indigenous Bedouins roaming the sandhills with their camel trains. Hardly enough people to take this country forward into today's age. So the rulers embarked on this program of importation of labour, a great program from all around the world. And this, when the economy started to grow from this, the society also started to grow in tandem. And the society that was created was one which fostered deprivation. Now, deprivation is the lacking of material benefits that we consider to be basic necessities in life. But the rulers didn't care so much about this. They said basically, you want to come to our country? Because 95% of the population was immigrants. So they didn't care too much about the benefits, about the benefits they provided. If you want to come here and work here, please do. If you don't like what we offer, go away. That was their philosophy. However, the irony was that many of these immigrants turned up, started their new jobs, and they had their passports confiscated. So in fact, they were trapped in this country and forced to endure the barbaric and often inhumane conditions that existed. Modern day slavery comes to mind. Bangladeshis, Indonesians, Pakistanis, these are just some of the nationalities that came along in the 80s and the 90s and the 2000s with a dream, thinking that this was an opportunity for them. But then that dream was taken away and they were sacrificed basically. They were enslaved. I'm sure a lot of you have heard of this story or read about it maybe. The story of labourers working on these skyscrapers amongst the metal and the steel in the 50 degrees heat, and then getting bussed home to their accommodation, which is a camp outside of the city in the desert, living 20 to a room with no air conditioning. We all sympathise with this, I'm sure, because we're humans. But at the end of the day, we watch the program or finish reading the article and then we turn off the television and we forget about it. Because we have our own problems to deal with, we have our own lives to go in, and there's nothing much that we can do. But sometimes it becomes personal. It becomes personal sometimes just simply we can put a face to this story. I lived in Dubai for a period of time before I came to Kazakhstan, and I got to see a little piece of what was happening here. And now when I look back at this period, there's one story which sits in my mind a little bit. It's the story of a Pakistani taxi driver who I met one day in his taxi as he took me from one place to another place. This is Mohammed's story. Mohammed was 55 years old. He had 3 children and a wife who lived in Pakistan. He left them 30 years ago on his quest to find employment and to support them. He spent 10 years in Saudi Arabia driving taxis. And then he spent the next 20 years driving taxis in Dubai, in the United Arab Emirates. Mohammed worked 6.5-day weeks. Mohammed worked 12-hour shifts minimum. He lived in a small apartment with 5 other Pakistani men, cramped in accommodation with little comfort. He had a modest salary. He said 90% of it via Western Union back to his family every month. His one luxury was that they afforded him 1 month a year where he went home to see his family. 1 month for every year for 20 years. Now, this is where the story gets a little bit more interesting. You see, on this particular day, Mohammed was very joyful and happy, it seemed to me. So I asked him what was happening, why was he so happy, and he replied that his son had just joined him in Dubai. His son, not to visit him, but to begin his working career. His career driving taxis. Now they were going to spend the next 6 months together, living together. It's something that they hadn't done previously forever, so I can imagine Mohammed's joy in being able to spend that time with his son. And at the end of that 6 months period, Mohammed was going to leave and never return. His son, being 20, had taken on the mantle of being the supporter and the providing for the whole family. The cycle had come full turn. It was now his son's turn to drive taxis and do what his father had done for the last 20 years. Now, as Mohammed told me this story, he was saying it with pride and happiness, and I just couldn't but help feel a little bit of his joy. But at the same time, it got me thinking about the fairness of things in life. Mohammed was just happy that he had a job and his son had a job. He didn't know that he was in this vicious cycle that was never going to end. What type of life does he have and his son have? What freedoms do they have? Do they have a quality of life? Do they have anything to look forward to? I would like to conclude by just asking you one question. What type of world do we live in today where these type of situations are allowed to exist and to flourish? May God help us all.